That hush over the crowd must mean we're getting close to the beginning. You guys could take your seats, that'd be great. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone, to day 2 of our caucus meetings. Exciting day today ahead of us with all 4 party leaders addressing our group and joining our meeting. I'm glad we have the format that we have today where everyone's going to actually participate as a collaboration experiment with our group, the Mid-Sized Cities and Mayors and CAOs Caucus. So, good morning. Thank you for being in Cochrane. We were happy to host you here today and last night. I hope everybody had a good time. Yes? Thank you. Thanks for that. Thanks again to the staff for last night. Important day for all of us today. The 22 municipalities representing 1 million Albertans coming together to address party leaders and have them join us today to collaborate on a relationship that we wish to carry on into the future. And I think it's important. Obviously, we're all here today, and the fact that we got all 4 party leaders to come shows the significance of our group and how we wish to work together with all of them should they succeed and be our next premier. So, we are very honored to have Stephen Mandel of the Alberta Party join us this morning. Mr. Mandel and each of the leaders have agreed to address us today and then take a bit of Q&A. So we'll have a bit of a format with that. We've got microphones, so if everybody could speak into a microphone when you have a question so that we can get it recorded on the official video and into the out into the media world, that would be great. Thank you. So let's get right to it. Alberta Mid-Sized Cities and Mayors and CAOs Caucus is comprised of 22 urban centres and 35 provincial constituencies. As I've said, 1 million Albertans. Our goal in inviting you here today, Mr. Mandel, is to establish a relationship with the next Premier of Alberta, and we are anxious to hear how you will collaborate with us into the future, form that relationship that I spoke about with mid-sized cities. So a little bit about yourself to introduce you. Mr. Mandel, an experienced political leader, business person, and community volunteer. He served as Edmonton's mayor from 2004 to 2013, and as an MLA and provincial health minister in 2014 and 2015. Stephen was elected leader of the Alberta Party February 2018. Stephen also is active in his community, volunteers for many local organizations, including his Mazankowski Heart Institute. I hope I got that pronunciation right.
Close enough.
Heart and Stroke Foundation, Jewish Community Center, Alan Gray Continuing Care Center. Most recently, Stephen was appointed Chancellor of Concordia University. Stephen and his wife Lynn are longtime residents of Edmonton, where they raise their children and now enjoy spending time with their grandson. Please welcome me, or help me welcome Mr. Mandel.
You're going to have to excuse me a little bit. My voice is, I guess from talking too much, has got a bit hoarse, so I'll have to sneak out and get my water a little bit. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit about the Alberta Party. And I would like to start by recognizing we are in Treaty 7 territory, traditional home of the Métis people. For those of you who don't know, even though the mayor told a little bit, I did start my political career as a councillor first in the city of Edmonton. Then I was elected mayor in 2004 for 3 terms, and I stepped down in 2013. I stepped down out of my choice, fortunately. If I stayed longer, it might have been the citizens' choice, but I made my decision. During my time as mayor, I was able to gain an understanding of the challenges that mid-sized cities face, whether it's through our Capital Region Board, our meeting with our Northern Mayors and Reeves organization, or through attending AUMA conventions. What I learned is that all communities have challenges, and by working together we can do much more and be much more effective. Of all these interactions, one meeting that was mentioned to the mayor last night that I remember quite vividly. It was a meeting, almost the first meeting we had about MSI when Stelmach was converting the system. And there was a meeting where there was representatives from Edmonton, Calgary, AUMA, and those days AMD and C, which I used to call the letter people, now called RMA, and they probably changed it because they had so many letters. And the RMA representative was Don Johnson, and he made a comment. He was sitting around the room waiting for the minister to come in and said, he can see the minister anytime he wants. He can go in and do whatever he wants and sees them. And Bob Hawksworth at the time was the head of AUMA. His jaw dropped, and he said, I never get in. Why can't I get in? And he was very frustrated. AUMA clearly wasn't as fortunate. That was back then. Now, I don't know what has been like with the current government from what spotlight has been shone on both Edmonton and Calgary with their big city charters, the funding for transit. And then certainly I'm hearing oftentimes about MSI funding from many of you. I feel like things haven't changed that much. It's always been more difficult for mid-sized cities to get the attention necessary to find the meaningful solutions. Coming to the event last night and here today, I want to thank all of you for making me feel right at home. I saw many friends from the days I was mayor, and I especially want to thank Mayor Jeff for his welcome and the great food last night and the booze. I didn't drink any, but many of you saw. Many of you saw were actually enjoying themselves quite a lot. Maybe more than that. Anyway, I won't go there either. I hope the Alberta Party team, and I use the word team because it's very important to us, be able to develop an open and effective relationship with all of you. Mid-sized city together, as Mayor was mentioning, are larger than Edmonton and slightly smaller than Calgary. So your impact in the province is substantial. You need to be treated with respect you deserve. And let's face the fact, you're a powerful driver of Alberta's economy. It is in your backyard that issues arise daily that are impactful and complicated. Challenges ranging from opioid crisis to job creation to police funding to infrastructure. These often cross over with provincial jurisdictions. You can only do so much without their support. As a former mayor, I remember my roots and realize that service delivery is usually more effectively done by those who are closest to the issue, and that is municipalities. I probably said that 100 or 200,000 times during my time in office. Yesterday, we met with a city council from the city of Calgary on FCSS, and we shared an understanding the program's effectiveness is a result of a partnership, provincially funded and municipally delivered. This is the type of relationship and model that needs to be expanded because it works. Address your many challenges and do it well, both orders of government. I use the word orders because oftentimes people call levels of government, and we know that's not fair. Both orders of government need to work together more closely and to create an environment which is open and accessible. We need to be partners, not adversaries. The Alberta Party pledges to build a stronger relationship with your group. Let me change topics for a second and share a little bit about the Alberta Party, because many people aren't as familiar with that as we would like to see they would be. Much of the original Alberta Party leadership is firmly embedded in municipal politics across our province today. We won't say who that might be, but many of you might know. So we hope now to take advantage of all that and take over the entire province. We often refer to ourselves as centrists, and people ask, what the heck is that? To me, it means we are passionate about people, all people. We fundamentally believe that the best ideas come forward when you hear all perspectives. We will make decisions based on facts and evidence, work with others to find creative and practical solutions. Being centrists, we aren't just a party that's between the left and the right. We're much, much more. We deeply believe in raising the bar so we can be better role models for the next generation. In politics, we're not dogmatic or ideological. We will support good ideas, no matter where they come from. Within our party, we'll be more than happy to allow our MLAs to have free votes to truly represent your communities. We see the future of Alberta tied to innovation and technology and a diversified economy steeped in lifelong learning. We see government and public service as a conduit for delivering the highest level of service to all Albertans or retaining a respect for taxpayers. Our Alberta will continue its long tradition of free enterprise and entrepreneurial spirit to ensure it will continue to be a beacon of opportunity. This is the Alberta Party. As we get ready for the upcoming election, there are a few topics always top of mind, and let me outline the Alberta stance on various issues and how they relate to your communities. I guess the first thing is let's get to the heart of the issues, money. We realize that once and for all, there needs to be a long-term funding formula for mid-sized cities that allows you to deliver the service communities require and includes replacement for what has been traditionally called the MSI. A mid-sized city charter is one option, but what is the most important is that the formula works. An Alberta Party government commits to sitting down with the mid-sized caucus to work out a formula. We'll commit to completing that in the first 9 months of office. At this point in time, I won't pretend to know the answer. What I do know is that we will negotiate in good faith. I know how important it is to your communities, and it is clear that we will all benefit from longer-term planning and stability. We all realize that the province is in financial trouble, but a formula must be reflective of both the good and the bad times. Now, another area we really need to improve is our healthcare system. Those of you who know me know that I spent a few months, not that long, as healthcare minister, but I have a great passion for it. First of all, we need to review the system and its costs as it currently sits. The metrics today, if one goes through the reports, are worse than they were 4, 5, 6 years ago, and the costs keep going up. I know the government will cry cuts, cuts, cuts to frontline services, but that's not the case. We should not be afraid of a reasonable evaluation that aims to improve our healthcare system. Also, an Alberta Party-led government recognized that good decision-making in healthcare is not just limited to Edmonton and Calgary, and in fact, must not be limited to them. For too long, decisions have been centrally controlled, and in this process, local and regional needs have not been addressed. The Alberta Party will decentralize our healthcare system into a regionalized system with adequate funding to deliver the necessary service as determined by each regional authority with an overall budgetary framework. As a former health minister, I know we can do better. I want to be clear, the Alberta Party firmly believes in a publicly funded, publicly delivered healthcare system. There's no negotiating that. You know, I've used the healthcare system recently a great deal, and my family now is doing it again with my nephew. And I can tell you, without our system, we would be broke, and I'm not a poor person. So it is incredibly important that we have that opportunity, and so I can tell you I'll fight to the death over that, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't be more creative and find ways to do a better job. We also reevaluate the EMS system, so it's more responsive to community needs. We see that a provincial-wide independent operating EMS system is one idea to pursue, but again, in a public system, not in a private system. On the capital side, we need to review the needs and facilities across the province and how each facility will link at the new regional health system. We hope the Grand Prairie Hospital will be finished in the not-too-distant future. We must learn from the mistakes that created the delays and cost overruns. We see Red Deer as the next hospital move forward. My understanding is the needs assessment has already been completed, so we should be able to move forward relatively quickly. In Red Deer's case, we are fortunate that our candidate, Dr. Paul Hardy, is familiar with the local needs, has been a great source of information. I might add he's been very practical in how he views the healthcare needs in Red Deer. Another initiative I'm particularly excited about is how we will look at our $22.2 billion healthcare budget, not just as a cost center, but also an asset, a testing grounds for new medical and technology and innovation. With the current challenge with our economy, we must look at everything we do with an economic development lens to create opportunity for a more diversified economy. This is also the intent behind the establishment of a regional economic infrastructure development fund dedicated to investing in regional infrastructure that will allow regions across the province to flourish. This would be in addition to MSI. In my travels, I've been told by many such projects. A few simple examples are a spur line in southern Alberta to help move their products, a solar farm in a community that lost their coal-fired plant, a bridge across to access massive coal reserves, and a highway that is a bottleneck to energy growth. The fund will have a practical objective: build things that will create jobs, opportunities, and allow communities across the province to reach their fullest potential. On this topic of economic development and diversification, the Alberta Party and Alberta Party government would focus on building out value chains in agri-food business, medical research, resources that's both energy resource and forestry, tourism, manufacturing, technology. Our platform will outline many of these things, all of these things in detail. Today I'm not going to spend any time on them because we're more dealing with your concerns. To have a successful economy, we must have strong alignment between our talent and our industries. As our economy shifts and new industries emerge, our education system must shift to meet the new demands for both young and mature students. All the potential lies in a strong post-secondary system. To accomplish this, there are many things that the province needs to change to increase access to quality education, and mid-sized city will play an important role in that. First is a commitment to growing the capacity of our post-secondary system. On a per capita basis, we have one of the lowest enrollments in post-secondary with our high school graduates. To reach even the current national levels of enrollment, we need to add 45,000 spaces. And if we do that over 5 years, in 5 years, we need to add another 45,000 spaces. That's just to keep to the average. And Alberta Party government would prioritize allocation to institutions that currently reside in mid-sized cities. Secondly, we need to offer improved access to rural students. We'll do this by strengthening linkages between our 26 post-secondary institutions to enhance transferability, and we will also invest in distance learning, which is vitally important. With our shifting economy and unprecedented levels of unemployment, we need to take a long, real serious look at about retraining programs. Lifelong learning is vitally important in ensuring that all our talents maintain its edge. The Alberta advantage of the future should be our people. It should be the adaptability of our workforce and our ability as a society grasp challenges and turn them into opportunities. We release our platform, you see that education is one of Alberta Party's top priorities. There's just a couple more topics I want to touch on today before I answer some questions. Housing. Housing is identified as a key challenge when it comes to supporting our vulnerable population and ensuring that they live with dignity. The other day I was in Calgary and I had a meeting with some people in a manufactured home park, and I was shocked to hear that people, elderly people, had 6 months left in their savings before they were going to be evicted. It was unconscionable. And I was absolutely shocked that there's no way for these people to fight in the system. So this is a bit off topic, but we need to review the Mobile Home Tenancy Act to give people the rights they deserve so they're protected. It is hard to believe when you look at someone who says they're going to have to leave their house, but instead they're going to have to live in their car. Something like that in a province of Alberta, without the proper laws, is really just so hard to believe. It's a bit off topic, but I was so shocked at that. And I happen to be a mobile home park owner, and I just could not imagine us ever doing that. And this is a group of people that have gotten an incredibly bad reputation in a particular part of the province, who I talked to yesterday as a councillor who knew all about it. But he says they're powerless. That's sad. I always just, so I'll go back to my comments, but I mean, all of you who have parks, make sure you protect your people. I mean, they don't have a lot of rights, especially in today's environment. I always used to say that Alberta does not have a housing crisis, our cities do. We need an incentive program for private sector to build mixed communities. We realize that this is not just the responsibility of the housing or development industry or the cities, but all of us. Social issues responsibility, every Albertan, not just to one industry. We see a percentage of income as the most probable way to implement this strategy. The number we are hearing most often is the cost of housing should be limited to 30-35% of one's income. Their current approach to restrict investments only into high-cost provincial-owned seniors and long-term housing has held us back from meeting the growing demand for seniors' housing. Provincial costs are now running over $700,000 per unit, while in traditional programs, the public cost per unit was in a grant program around $75,000 per unit. Alberta Party government will partner with private sector, community, and faith-based groups who have been partners with and delivering these services for decades. I firmly believe we can achieve the best outcomes. We work together with communities and create opportunity for all. Policing. Mayor. Mayors, I should say. We also realize that communities across the problem are facing many safety and security challenges. Alberta Party government will work with communities to ensure their safety through added technology enforcement and supports. Later on top of these issues surrounding crime are two very significant challenges Albertans and Alberta communities face across the province, and especially the mid-sized cities. First, the opioid crisis, and secondly, legalization of cannabis. With the form of the devastation and death the opioids have caused is tragic. This is epidemic. We need to crack down on drug trade as much as we need to support evidence-based, compassionate care for those impacted. Much has been discussed, but I'm sure that the government has not given the issue the kind of attention that it deserves. We need to make a major commitment to changing the course of opioid use. They also take money and manpower. We're committed to both. As for legalization of cannabis, it is currently a great unknown as to what the collective impact will be. New licenses are coming out all the time, and so the supply has not met up with the demand. So I'm not sure, I don't think anybody knows what the impact is going to be in the next number of years. So I think at this point in time, the Alberta Party commits to setting up a working group specifically with AUMA and RMA to discuss the increased costs which will inevitably come about. We've also committed to coming up with funding formula to offset the cost of municipalities across the province, which will include sharing of 50% of the residual cannabis revenue, a commitment the Alberta Party has already made. In previous discussions I've had, and even some today, about provincial funding for police, it's, I know, a very, very tricky situation when you come to mid-sized cities versus smaller communities. You know, given the challenge with rural crime and the issues that rural communities are facing, we need to sit down with the rural communities and RMA to discuss what that formula looks like and how we can better able to deliver the services for crime prevention in rural Alberta. I know it isn't your issue, but I know it's frustrating for many of your communities when you're paying the cost of or 90% of the cost of police, while some of your neighbors are not paying anything. It's something we need to discuss. At this point in time, it's a tempest in a teapot, and I think it's better to sit down with the RMA and come up with some answers to the problems. You've heard before that the only constant thing in life is change. Right now, we see how the pace of change, technology advancement is exponentially increasing. Alberta has the potential to lead this change if we embrace these opportunities. Yesterday was quite interesting. Excuse me. Too much talking, I guess. Yesterday, we visited a plant which is going to convert natural gas into a synthetic additive of diesel, which will bring down the pollutants that exist in diesel products right now. They're also coming doing the same thing with biomass. It was quite remarkable what they're doing, and it's really an Alberta-based technology, not somewhere for other places. This starts with a creative government that can and will work with each and every one of you to build our new Alberta. No one wants to look back, and no one wants to be driven by ideology, but a party that wants to have a brighter future for all of us. We're all in this together. And time has come for us to learn about each other's challenges, to reach out and help. That's the Alberta way. Today, we're giving you a sneak peek at part of our vision for Alberta. With the upcoming election, the Alberta Party will not only have a full slate of 87 candidates, we'll also present a clear vision where we feel Alberta needs to go. Stay tuned. We look forward to working with all of you to build a stronger, more vibrant Alberta and being your friend and partner. Thank you. You want questions?
Would you care to join us for a meeting?
I feel more at home here, so
Please.
easy to drink the water this way.
Thank you for your presentation, and maybe before we get to questions, I would open the questions with something I kind of precluded in the opening remarks. If successful as Premier, Mr. Mandel, how would you see the relationship with this group?
Well, as I tried to say in my remarks, that I value the way in which mid-sized cities contribute to the province. And if we're going to be in this together, we have to be partners. And I think that there's always been this adversarial role between province and municipalities. I think we must be partners. You know, I really believe that's a much more effective way to build a province. And I see it as it's simple. It's not that complicated. You know, sometimes we're going to disagree, but it should always be in a friendly atmosphere. So I see that creating a strong relationship, and the relationship has to be obviously with Edmonton and Calgary, but also with the mid-sized cities, but really on an individual basis. You know, as a province, I think that one of the great things about us is that we are really down to earth. We're about people, and I think the Alberta Party wants to have that relationship with all the communities. I think it's in our DNA. It's about who we are. We're grassroots. I mean, you know, we're not fancy. We're not, you know, we're just like you guys. I came from municipal government. I understand it. I know the problems. And this is where the problems are solved. You know, I think at the higher level, we tend to forget that, you know, we're still at the provincial level, and the federal level, but that at the provincial level, we're still a distance from people. Well, you guys see it every day. You know, you walk into, I always found it interesting. I walked into a grocery store, everybody knew who I was. The MLA or the MP for sure, nobody knew who he was. They don't know their names. So, I mean, I think that's the difference. You guys can't escape. So we need to make sure that we're your partners.
Well, I completely agree with you. I cannot escape the media here in Cochrane are already here today. So yeah,
it's hard to miss you as you walk in.
Going to the grocery store is a challenge. Thank you for that, and thank you for joining us in our meeting setting today. This is how we thought would best show our efforts to want to collaborate, and having you sit today is a big deal for us. So thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. No, it's great. I know how collaborative. I know many here and some I met last night, some today that's the DNA which is built within. You guys have to collaborate.
So this is a comfortable, safe setting.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Not given the media attention, but I think we'll open it up to questions, and we'll take a few. And if you would just state your name and what municipality you're representing. See over here. Thank you.
Morning, Stephen. It's Kathy Heron,
Oh,
City
hi.
of St. Albert.
Hi, St. Albert. How are you?
Your neighbor.
A neighbor?
It's interesting you're saying that you have some roots. A lot of your nominees have roots. So the one in my riding, Neil Cortesh, who was a former city councillor.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have that. It's nice. Now, you need to know that we have some prepared questions that we wanted to try to get all the leaders to answer the same questions. And you answered most of mine in your speech. It was about MSI. It is one of the bigger and more important things. I'm going to ask you to expand a little bit. You're probably aware that Edmonton and Calgary have the big city charters, and so their infrastructure funding is legislated. They took a bit of a cut, and so what we're looking for as a group is a couple of things. It will be, if you're the premier, it will be obvious that you will talk to AUMA and RMA in your commitment within 9 months to do something. So my two-part question is, will you allow one of us as a representative mid-size to sit at that table? And the second part of that is, we're looking for a funding formula that's very similar, or equitable to Edmonton and Calgary, and that it's legislated for us as well. So could you kind of expand on that?
Well, I don't think Edmonton and Calgary are special. I think that what the goose gets, the gander should get as well. So I think that the funding formula that's been created, but for Edmonton, Calgary, could work for mid-sized cities, but it might not work. I mean, one of the concerns I've heard as I went around the province is that MSI sometimes, depending on the size of the community, let's say, you're 60,000 people, other cities are Red Deer or Lethbridge bigger even, and so they get a greater capacity from the formula. But smaller centers, let's say they're 10,000 or 11,000 people, that MSI doesn't give them enough money to accomplish what they need to accomplish. And so I think there needs to be an adjustment in the formula to take into account the size of the community and the needs that it has. And I think that's one of the challenges I've heard across the province. It's simple to say one size fits all, but I don't think that necessarily is the answer. So we would like to sit down with mid-sized city caucus or mid-sized city group and find out what's going to work for you guys and gals. It's not what we need, it's what you need. So there's no sense going through the whole process and getting a formula and then all of a sudden it doesn't work. So I think that's the first thing is to find what that is and to commit to getting it completed in a length of time that's reasonable and because things can happen quicker if you make the decision, if you put dates on, we're going to get it done, that's the timing and no more fooling around. So that's about the MSI. And that's the relationship with Edmonton and Calgary. I was one of the first involved with the big city charters. And I'm not it's a way in which, to get more money. I don't necessarily know if it's good or bad. when we went through it, I had my doubts about it. But so there'd definitely be a charter for mid-sized cities and for smaller communities, not a difficult thing to do, and it can follow the format of Edmonton and Calgary. If that's what the community wants, I don't think it's, if one group has it, I'm not sure why the other ones can't. But I think you need to adjust it to make sure it covers the needs that you have in your communities. Many of you are really more bedroom communities or communities that need to do certain kinds of things. Others are real economic drivers of an area that have increased responsibilities because of certain things. So you're a very eclectic group of people. And so sometimes one size might not fit all.
Thank you.
Over here. Thank you.
Mr. Mandel, thank you for joining us. Mayor Gerald Albers, City of Lloydminster.
Love that city.
Alberta municipalities are feeling the impact of our provincial economy, and it's been weighted on by both provincial, federal, and world policies and factors that we have no control of. How would your party as government partner with our mid-sized cities to continue to diversify the economy and create an environment that investors are confident in back in Alberta to get the economy moving?
Well, I think there's a variety of things. It's not just partnering with the mid-sized cities, but I think one of the concerns that I've heard from many investors that people are confused about what are the rules of the game. And like we met with these people yesterday, and they say that's one of the biggest challenges they hear from people, and they're looking to have major investors. And one thing that businesses, you all know if you've been in business before, want to know what the rules of the game are. So I think we have to be very clear as a province to put in place the regulations and outline that they actually mean something and that we're going to follow those regulations. And if you follow those regulations, what you want to do will happen or won't happen if you don't meet the regulations. So that's something that's a provincial responsibility. So I think that's one, and that needs to be clarified quickly. It's not to get rid of regulations. Regulations are there for a reason. We get rid of regulations, what we have is anarchy. We don't want anarchy. Or we have is what we really have right now is unending numbers of orphan wells across the province. That's lack of regulation. Now, the decision today has changed that for the Supreme Court. But that's why we need regulation. So not having it is ridiculous. But all business wants to know is the rules. So that's number one. Number two, I think that we need to look at our economy in a different way. The energy industry is still going to be a mainstay of the Alberta economy, and anybody doesn't think that is fooling themselves for the next 20 and 30 years. But what can we do differently? I think that's a big part of the change we have to make. And as an example, these people yesterday looking at investing in new kinds of technologies. We need to encourage that. We need to have investment funds, tax credits, programs, which will allow investors to see that they invest in these programs. They can then get some tax benefits, some money from the province, which everybody seems to want, but not picking winners and losers. That's number two. So I think that's vitally important. I think making sure that within your communities you have good infrastructure that's going to allow the businesses to come there and be successful. If you don't have good road access, or as I mentioned before, if you're trying to develop a big oil field, but you can't get there, it takes you an hour to get there, well, what's the sense of it? I mean, that's not going to happen. So, and also take a look at what other industries. I know, talking to the mayor yesterday, that here they're looking at doing things with a lot of technology. So what is your community like? What are you trying to strive for? Lloydminster, a tremendous energy community. I know it's been hit a great deal. But at the same time, how do we then change some of the parts of Lloydminster? How do we do more investment in research and technology? It doesn't have to always just sit in Edmonton and Calgary. I know I heard the other day talking about someone said, oh, you really, all of it's in Edmonton and Calgary, we should leave it there. Well, no. Let's find other places to create programs that will encourage research in communities. So that's another way we can do. But I think really sitting down with and partnering with mid-sized communities in ways that they see we can be a team and helping them to reach their dreams, their goals. Decisions shouldn't be always about what the province wants. What do you want? You know your city a heck of a lot better than I do, even though I spent a lot of years in Lloyd, and I would like to say one of the great city councils of all time. They were great to deal with. Not as many as I was. It was a wonderful place to do business with. So just as a historic, this is many, many years ago. great. So I have a great deal of fondness for Lloyd.
Thank you, Mr. Mandel.
I think we have time for one more, maybe two, if we get through this one quickly.
If I shut up and don't talk as much.
Well, we're here to hear you today.
Stephen, you were talking, Stuart Houston, the mayor from the city of Spruce Grove.
Nice, Stu.
City of Spruce Grove. You were just initially talking about diversification and the need to get transportation and roads built to those areas. The question, when we talk, where we're looking at the growth creates a need for additional highways, bridges, overpasses and such, and to sustain our economic development and social benefits for Alberta. As municipalities, we're all limited in ways that we have the ability to collect other revenue sources outside traditional property taxes. What's your government's approach to managing and funding transportation infrastructure, as well as your government's responsibility to support municipalities in revenue sharing and investment? So it's kind of a two-part question, transportation and revenue sharing.
You mean revenue sharing with your neighbors? You mean with Parkland County, like it's an example? Grand Prairie County, Red Deer County? I'm not, I just
Yeah,
putting you in the spot, Stu.
yeah. We're trying.
I know,
Collaborating.
everybody's working closely together. Well, first of all, I think it's one of the reasons you have MSI is to help communities build that internal infrastructure they need in order to reach the necessary movement of people and services within their community. The bigger issues, the bigger costs, overpasses, major highways are provincial responsibilities, and they need to be funded through the province. The idea of this investment fund we want to put for communities is to bring communities together to try to link those things. So if there's something in the county and in the city that needs to be done, but there doesn't seem to be enough money to do it, well, this infrastructure fund will act as a link in order to create that opportunity because it's a business driver. So I think number one, the province has to have the responsibility to build those things, and we have to find maybe a little different way to finance it. Because I think, we're getting so far in debt and there's so many demands, we just have to become more creative to do it, and whether there's bonds we can use, or I think to a certain extent, we need to take a look at capital in a different way. We look at capital as always a hard service, an overpass, a road. We may look at capital as ways of investing in innovation and other things. So, but getting back to your question, province has that responsibility. But I think in today's world, given the problems we face, a lot of it has to be driven by what are the economic opportunities? What are the jobs you can create? Should be a question that should be asked. If you build that overpass, Stuart, what are you going to do to create jobs? I know there was an announcement recently about the overpass in Leduc. There should be an economic justification. Given the, if we're back in 2000 and whatever it is, and we had $20 billion sitting in the bank and everybody wanting money, it's a different story. Today, we're $85 billion in debt. We have no money. Any money the province gives to you for a capital project, they have to borrow. So it's not like they're going to be using money they got in their pocket. So let's find a way that's going to create some jobs, to create more income, that's going to generate some more opportunity for creating wealth in the province, which will then get us out of this hole. So it's a partnership again, but I think there needs to be some parameters.
Thank you. We got one more.
Good morning, Stephen.
Oh, hi.
Mayor Peter Brown from the City
Yes.
of Airdrie. We really appreciate you being
Nice
here
to see
this
you.
morning. And you touched on some of the question actually in your opening remarks, but community safety and policing remains a priority throughout the province, obviously. With the municipal police funding review currently underway, how can the mid-sized cities work with your party to build a common understanding of the issues, constraints, opportunities to develop well-informed and equitable solutions to the police system and related funding?
One advantage I think the mid-sized cities have over many other areas is the defined simple area. I know some might say it's rather large, but it's a defined area. I think it's really, if the current government is going through a review, I think you have to look at policing from a broad base. What is happening in the communities that's changing? I think there's an assumption that everything in mid-sized cities is this lovely little world, and that's not true. I mean, opioid abuse in mid-sized cities is probably as bad as anywhere in the province, if not worse. The challenge of new Canadians going to these communities. People think, they're all coming down in Calgary. Not true. they're coming to mid-sized cities. That's where the jobs are. So I think there needs to be a great understanding of the problems that mid-sized cities face, and then begin to look at them in the context of what you need as far as policing, as far as social support systems. And it's not just one size fits all, but it's the world is changing so much that people are now leaving the Edmontons and Calgarys and going to the Airdries because it's maybe more reasonable housing prices, and the same thing with going to the Grand Prairies or the Fort McMurrays, job creation and things like that. So it's different needs. We have to be more creative in how we do it. And police funding is important. I know you pay, I know, we 90%, right? 90% and 10% is paid by the province. That's not necessarily a fair number. I think the province has responsibility in all kinds of areas that historically they've decided that we can stick it to somebody, well, let's stick it to them, and then spent money in a way that was more frivolous than they should have. I think we need to look at the core things that we need to do as a province, and then part of that is the sustainability of municipalities as a core function. It's not a frivolous function. It's something that we need to make sure that you guys, and not just mid-sized cities, but all cities, are stable and strong in the province. And that should be a priority of the government, not finding ways to do other things that are fancy and sexy. So I think that that's an important ingredient that we, the Alberta Party, believes. As a former municipal leader, I know that the goods are delivered at your level. And let's make sure that you're strong, able to deliver those services, and do them in a way that allows your citizens, our citizens, to be successful.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. I think that's all the time we have for questions this morning. We really appreciate you spending time this morning with us. We could probably talk about this all day. In fact, our meetings usually do take most of every day. So,
Well,
on behalf of
22 people is not easy.
you have that right. On behalf of the mid-sized cities, we have a small gift for you in recognition of you and appreciation of your attendance today. So, thank you.
Thank you all very much and good luck. Oh, I get this. Yes. I get a bag. If I take this to